Welcome to my channel and another one of my videos. To those that are new to my channel, welcome also. Today I am showcasing more of my own miniatures which I've painted for my own collection. This time this is the 1st Battalion of the 43rd Light Regiment, or the Monmouthshire Regiment. That was part of the British Light Infantry Division that was present at the Battle of Victoria. All these miniatures are 28mm and are from Front Rank Miniatures from the UK, and I've painted these to my tabletop standard. Before we get down and have a closer look at the miniatures, I just want to share with you a bit of history of the unit and a bit of its background. This particular regiment, which is the 43rd Light Regiment, it originally was raised in Winchester by Colonel Thomas Falk as Thomas Falk's Regiment of Foot in 1741. The regiment's first deployment was on garrison duty at Minorca in 1742. The regiment was numbered 54th Regiment of Foot from 1747 until 1751, when it finally became the 43rd Regiment of Foot. In May 1757, the 43rd sailed for North America, arriving at Halifax, Nova Scotia, the following months to defend the British North American colonies during the French and Indian War, as the North American theatre of the was part of the 7 Years' War, which was against France. The detachment of the 43rd was defeated in a skirmish by resistance fighters at a place called Bloody Creek, and which is near Fort Anne, on the 8th of December 1757. The regiment had spent almost 2 years on garrison duties when in 1759, as part of General Wolfe's force, it took part in the capture of Quebec, gaining its first battle honour. The next campaign was in the West Indies, where the 43rd took part in the capture of Martinique in January 1762, and St. Lucia later in the month from the French, and the capture of Havana in August 1762 from the Spanish. Okay, this brings us now up to the American War of Independence. The regiment returned to North America in 1774 and remained there throughout the American War of Independence. The 43rd was joined by the 52nd at Boston in June 1774. It fought at the battles of Lexington and Concord. It also fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill. The regiment also formed part of the assault force, which had the unfortunate job of assaulting the heavily defended Breed's Hill following the siege of Boston. The regiment was evacuated to Halifax in Nova Scotia. 1 year later, the regiment sailed for Long Island and took part in the Battle of Long Island. Between the 16th and 18th of November 1776, the regiment took part in the Battle of Rhode Island, and shortly thereafter was withdrawn back to New York, where it took part in the Battle of Fort Washington and Battle of Fort Lee. In 1781, the regiment was moved back into New York, where it formed part of the garrison under Major General Henry Clinton. Later that year, the regiment joined Brigadier General Benedict Arnold in his Virginia campaign and took part in the Battle of Green Spring. Later, the regiment arrived in Yorktown and was present during the siege of Yorktown later that year. In 1782, regimental county titles were granted, and the 43rd became the 43rd Monmouthshire Regiment of Foot. The regiment returned to the West Indies in January 1794 to capture the second time Martinique and St. Lucia, which, following the peace treaty of 1763, had returned to France. They were defeated Guadeloupe in 1794 by a large French force after defending their position for 3 months. This brings us to the year 1803, where we saw the 43rd and 52nd and the 95th Rifles, which were organised to become the first corps of light infantry and formed the 1st Light Brigade at Shorncliffe in Kent under the command of Major General John Moore. The regiment was retitled as the 43rd Monmouthshire Regiment of Foot Light Infantry. The 43rd was also part of Sir Arthur Wellesley's force, which in 1807 captured Copenhagen and the entire Dutch fleet. Now this brings us up to the year 1808, which is the Peninsula War, where the 43rd fought in the Battle of Vimeiro, which drove Napoleon's forces from Portugal. The campaign against the French then moved to Spain, where in January 1809 the regiment took part in the retreat to Vigo and Corunna, achieving fame as part of the rearguard to the army before returning to England. Now this rearguard, just wanted to mention, as was also noted in my previous video, for the 52nd Light Infantry Regiment. These two regiments, along with the 95th Rifles, fought a rearguard action to help John Moore to escape back to England when they were being pursued by the French army, and they became quite well respected unit for their defence, allowing the British Army to escape. In May 1809, the 1st Battalion of the 43rd, as part of Sir Robert Crawford's Light Brigade, sailed for Portugal to join Sir Arthur Wellesley's army. On landing at Lisbon, the 43rd moved to Spain to support Wellesley's forces there. The battalion's march of 250 miles from Lisbon to Talavera included the march of 52 miles in 26 hours in the hottest season of the year. However, the Battle of Talavera had been won before the battalion arrived. However, there was a small company of the 43rd, which had been at Lisbon from December 1808, which had participated in that battle, and was part of General Richard Stewart's brigade. In 1810, the 43rd formed part of the Light Division under the command of Sir Robert Crawford. The 43rd fought in the Battle of the Crossing of the Coa in July 1810, the Battle of Busaco in September 1810, and the Battle of Sabugal in 1811. The 43rd also took part in the Battle of Fuentes de Honoro in May 1811, the assault on the fortress of Ciudad Rodrigo in January 1812, and the siege of Badajoz in April 1812. When storming the breach at Badajoz, the regiment suffered heavy casualties, with 20 officers killed and 335 men killed, which is quite significant because battalions averaged around about between 600 and 800 men, so that was pretty much half a battalion killed in that one particular battle. The regiment went on to fight at the Battle of Salamanca in July 1812 and at the Battle of Vittoria in June 1813, and then pursued the French army into France, where they saw action at the Battle of Nivelles in November 1813, the Battle of Nives in December 1813, the Battle of Toulouse in April 1813. Following the end of the Peninsula War in 1814, the Light Division was disbanded and the 43rd returned to England. Now, the 2nd Battalion of the 43rd was part of a campaign which was in 1809, where many troops were lost due to their fever, and so there was only left was the 1st Battalion, and that 1st Battalion sailed to North America in 1814 to be part of the War of 1812 against America. So that concludes the brief history of this particular regiment. It's quite colourful, I believe. I think it's very interesting, the background of these units, and it's pretty similar history to the 52nd. I guess the time it was raised to the Peninsula War, I think a lot of the British units would have participated in a lot of those famous battles and famous wars that we all know today, such as the French-Indian War, the American War of Independence, the Peninsula War, Napoleonic War, the War of 1812. So yes, that's just a brief history of the regiment. Okay, now let's have a look at the actual battalion itself. I've tried my best to paint the regiment to the tabletop standards so that I can just do justice to this regiment in honour of its history. This is the 1st Battalion. It's made up of 30 figures, and the British battalion had 10 companies. So as this is 30 miniatures, there'd be 3 figures per company. And as this is a light regiment, there is none of the traditional flank companies, as all soldiers are highly trained light infantry. I've tried to also organise this regiment or battalion in a more dynamic way, just to give it a little bit more of a dynamic look on the table. It goes for better photo ops when you're wargaming. But if we just come here, we can see here we have on the flank here, which is the left flank of the battalion, we have the officer, we have the sergeant at the back there, we have the soldiers there, which are just privates. They are in the firing position. I made up this my light infantry regiments to look like they're firing, because they'd be more likely to be firing than being on the march, because I think they'll be more in the thick of it than and it gives them like they're actually in action than being a little bit static. So we have the first rank kneeling, the second rank firing. As we come across here, we have the center company, which has the sergeant there with his arm in a sling. Either he got a broken arm or injured his shoulder. We have the drummer there, and then we have the ensigns at the back there, carrying the regimental colours and also the King's colours. As you can see with the flag there, that the facings for this particular regiment were white. And then we have the drummer there in the reverse colours on the jacket, Now just with the drummer, there was no information in regards to the drummer in its uniform, so I just took a bit of liberty to give it a little bit of variety to this particular regiment, and gave him reverse colours. It may not be historically correct, but I couldn't find anything to say that wasn't or it was, so I just took the liberty, as I say, and gave it a little bit of variety for the drummers of this particular regiment to have a white jacket. Didn't come out quite as well as I'd like, but I'm quite happy. Yeah, the way they look, I guess I could have done a lot better, but as I get more experience in painting 28mm, I'm sure that my reverse colours on drummers will improve. Then we have another officer there with more of the privates. Then we come across to the final companies. On the right flank we have the officer there with the sergeant and another drummer, steadying the right flank, making sure that the battalion is in correct formation. Now also an interesting note with this particular regiment, the 43rd Light, is that they actually had a very distinctive officer's uniform. They actually wore the police instead of the regular jacket that you saw on most iconic officers' uniform. So these figures are from front rank, and they are the rifle officer with the police. Now the uniform guide that I have says that the police was grey, but actually in the picture it looked more white or off-white. So I've tried to make it a bit more of an off-white than a white, just to make it a little bit more dynamic. So you have there, you got the officer there. He has a little bit more of a greyish fur to his police there, and then you come across here, you got a bit more white, and then we come across to the left flank there, and he's a little bit more of an off-white grey as well. I didn't want to have it dark grey, because I'm sure that the guy was kind of hinting at. I just think it didn't look right, so I took a bit of liberty there. So that's the regiment, and that is the completed regiment, which is the 43rd Regiment, which is the Light Infantry. So that concludes also the brief history as well, and the showcase of these miniatures. I hope you enjoyed this presentation of what I've painted. If you like what you see, please like, comment and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell so you can get notification of more of my videos as they come available. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll try and get some photos at the end of this video so you can get some close-ups of the actual unit, and have a look at how I painted them to my tabletop standard. Thank you all once again, and be safe, and I will catch you next time I post a video. Bye for now.